on this episode of the Sorority Chat podcast.
But I went into this corporate client and I'm watching the audience kind of stroll into the conference room. And I'm like, okay, it's clear. Those appear to be the HR people over there. That looks to be the leadership corner over there. And then I'm watching a group of other guys that walking in that clearly just walked off the job site. They've still got fluorescent vests on. Some of them are taking their hard hats off and setting down. And I was like, okay, we are about to learn if we can connect with a new group here. And what I found was as these guys came in, I started to see all the guys I grew up with and each of them as they walked in. The people that I've met through this experience have completely changed my life.
Hey y'all, and welcome to Sorority Chat. I'm Liz Toombs, a designer and sorority alum who's obsessed with all things Greek life. My mission? To bring you real conversations, smart insights, and fun stories that help make sorority living even better. So grab your favorite beverage, get comfy, and let's chat. Welcome back to today's episode of Sorority Chat. Today's guest is Scott Fussell. He's a dedicated coach, consultant, and advocate with a passion for helping others grow personally, relationally, and professionally. Scott currently serves on Beta Theta Pi's board of trustees and is a go-to on fraternity ritual. Scott is also a mental health advocate and co-founder of The Shift Initiative, a nonprofit committed to shifting the way we think, talk, act, and care about mental health and wellness. Along with his good friend, Marianne Calais, Scott hosts the Leaders, Letters, and Legacy podcast, a storytelling podcast that captures and tells the stories of longtime leaders of the fraternity and sorority community. Hey, Scott.
What's up, Liz? Good to see you.
Good to see you. The podcast name is a bit of a tongue twister, but I love it.
Yes, it is. And I'm not even joking. It took me 6 episodes before I could remember to say it properly and in the right order. And so you talk about going back and editing some podcasts. It's unbelievable. So yeah, so this is a good trick of the trade for you to keep in mind is always say the name of your podcast correctly. It's super helpful for your listeners. And just take some at-bats, take some muscle memory.
I imagine you now walk around the house just saying it over and over, like on a loop.
That's totally what I do. That's totally what I do. Or we just call it L3. That's usually even better. So.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. That's pretty good.
Yeah, we're just too early in the life cycle of this new venture to call it by a nickname. We haven't earned a nickname yet.
Well, get some swag made and start handing it out, and then like L3 will become a thing, right?
Yeah, I don't think you quite understand. This is not a profitable or monetized endeavor at this point. So we're not quite at swag situation yet, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, not yet. I like that.
Yeah,
I was going to say not yet. Anyway, it's good to see you, friend.
It's good to see you. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you on the pod and have some fun conversations. The last time that you and I had the pleasure of being together, you had not yet ventured into this role of coaching. You were kind of working your way there. So talk to me a little bit about what led to this and kind of share your background with listeners too, because I think that's really helpful and important for them to understand where you came from and why you are where you are.
Sure. So what a lot of people don't know is way back, many, many haircuts ago, I was actually an educator. And when I moved to Indy, I got out of teaching and got into sales, but it's always been there. I think you can remove the teacher from the school, but that person always is, you just can't get it out of your system. So
accurate.
Yes. And come from a family full of educators. So it's sort of in our family's DNA. So I have found myself when I'm the most alive is when I'm teaching and training and coaching. And so I have found ways to do that from a volunteer perspective for the last 15 years. And about a decade ago, almost, I was working for a property operations management company that supported fraternity sorority housing as their director of education, which is where we met.
Yeah.
And I had an opportunity to continue to coach and train again. And then, so a few years ago, I got certified in the Nurtured Heart approach, which is the foundation of our family's therapy. Essentially, it's a parenting teaching methodology that enables you to unleash the greatness in the emotionally intense young people that you love and lead. So between the work I was doing in the fraternity sorority community and the work I was getting to do coaching parents, it's this constant nudge like, man, you need to be doing this full time. You got to find a way to do more of it. So that's what I've started doing. Have a really incredible opportunity now to coach other organizations, to continue doing some of the work I'm doing with parents, and continue to raise awareness in regards to mental health. So been great fun to get out and hit the speaking circuit a little bit and continue to do more coaching and more speaking and more teaching. So that's sort of what got us to today. And yeah, we started this whole venture, I think back in Q4 of 2024, and Scott Fussell Coaching and Consulting was launched then, and here we are.
I know. I love it, though. I'm very excited for you because it's always just radiated off of you that this is kind of where you should be and what you should be doing. So it's very exciting really kind to watch.
Of you. Yeah. It's again, well, it's just like you when you see a blank slate, you walk into a home and you see the blank slate, that's when you come to life, right? Mm-hmm. And it's kind of amazing when you kind of know what you're uniquely wired to do. Mm-hmm. What that does for you energetically is pretty extraordinary. So yeah, it's great fun to be doing what you know you are supposed to be doing. So it's funny. I was telling our daughter not too long ago, I was like, because she was talking about trying to figure out what she's going to do professionally. And I'm like, babe, trust me, I need you not to be in a hurry here. I was 50 before I figured out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And her response to that was, okay, that's not helpful. And so,
brutal
but
honesty.
It is, yeah, absolutely. But it's just amazing. Life changes when you start to do what you know you are uniquely wired to do. And I think it gets better for everybody, and you're better equipped and more likely to be your personal best when you are doing what you are uniquely wired to do.
I think you're exactly right, but I don't know that our education system or culture, whatever you want to call it, I don't think that necessarily supports the finding what you're uniquely wired to do. I think we kind of go through this churn through the system, and then it's the life experiences and so then that's why it's you're 40, you're 50, and then you're getting to do these things. And maybe that's just how it's supposed to be. You need all of that experience to culminate, but I think that there's probably a way to make it a little better.
I think it's a couple of things. I think for some of us are slow learners.
Not me.
Some of us just it takes a little while to figure it out. But I think, gosh, you used the word churn there a second ago, and I think that's the right word in this situation. It's just a little bit, it's like rush when we're talking about fraternity and sorority life. It's you are literally rushed through a process. And I think our young people in many cases are actually being churned through a process, and they're feeling that they're getting churned and kicked out on the other side. And so there's this incredible pressure people feel to have it all figured out when you're 18 years old. And, that starts when our kids are 8 years old and we feel like, okay, look, you're showing that you can run and kick a ball at the same time. So we really need you to focus on soccer and only soccer. Because if you're going to get a college scholarship, you've got to be focused on one sport or you're going to get left behind. Well, left behind compared to who? And so we put them in this rigorous, we're going to be playing one sport. We're going to go play travel sports. We're going to be in multiple practices all week. And oh, by the way, in addition to all this crap we're doing with sports, you need to be taking an all AP class schedule or you're going to fall behind. So we are setting young people up to fail because we are begging them and requiring them to do more than they should be doing. Kids aren't having an opportunity to be kids. And so they go through that from 8 to 18, and then they get into college and it all just starts all over again. So it's just, it's rigorous, and frankly, it's relentless because you've got your parents on one side saying, do this, do this, do this. Your counselors also saying, do this, do this, do this. Your coach is saying the same thing. And oh, by the way, on social media, you're getting constant inputs of saying what you are and what you are not, most likely what you are not. So all of that together man, we wonder why our kids are struggling with anxiety and depression these days, but that's what we put them through. So we set them up for this.
Yeah.
So churn is the right word. Churn is absolutely the right word.
I agree. I think there's so much more that could be said on that topic too. Might have to be another conversation.
That's an entire podcast in and of itself. So
Yeah. What I always appreciate about talking to you, Scott, though, is there is no fluff. There is like the small talk is gone. And you will even say this, like, I don't have time for that. I get right to it. And when you talk to someone, you'll say, how are you? Like, how are you really? Not, don't give me the like, oh, I'm good. Everything's fine. Like, talk to me about stuff. And, you know, as this conversation is proving, we're getting right to the meat of things already.
Yeah, I think I'm too old now to have cocktail conversation.
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. Too old for it. And your time's too valuable. My time's too valuable. And especially with people that we don't get to see very often. Why are we wasting time just with superfluous, just surface level bullshit in your lives? No, when I ask you how you're doing, I want to know how you're doing. So you're, to your point, I think you may have been the victim of this last year when we saw each other, and I was like, "How you doing?" "Oh, I'm good." No, good's not an emotion. Tell me what's good. "Oh, I'm fine." Well, no, fine's not an emotion either, Liz. Let's try this again. How are you feeling? And so I think way too often, especially in this industry, and this is one of the things that drives me nuts, Liz, and you will know this just coming off a conference last week, way too often in the fraternity sorority community, we ask somebody, how you doing? And they say busy. That is not an emotion.
No, and I don't like that.
In my view, no. To me, it's code for exhausted. For some reason, it has become a badge of honor in the fraternity sorority community to say I'm busy. Well, no, you chose this profession. You chose to do this from a volunteer perspective. So how about we rephrase that and let's look at it. If you're busy, then how about we just look at that as, hey, you're active and you're engaged because you're making all the choices to do this work. So let's stop looking at it as a badge of honor and let's start looking at it as an opportunity, and because you're getting to do what you love to do. Otherwise, go find another job.
I appreciate that so much as someone who has spent the last couple of years simplifying. That was my word of the year last year, was simplify, like cull out a lot of stuff, see what I want to bring back in, like what was the most important. And so I'm with you. The booked and busy does not jive for me anymore.
Yeah. Go back to simplify really quickly. Give me 2 or 3 tangibles of what that looked like for you last year.
It meant not spreading myself too thin in volunteer work. It meant not overbooking my schedule just for the sake of it. Like allowing myself to have slow weekends where I might feel lazy and the overachiever in me might panic slightly because I'm not doing all the things. I may only do 2 things and then happily rest. That took a little bit of time to get used to.
I'm sure it did. It's funny. And I forgot who I was having this conversation with, but we're talking about just because your calendar is open doesn't mean you're available.
Exactly.
So I love that you gave yourself permission to rest when you could. And we've met each other before this call, so I understand what your social calendar can look like. And so the fact that Liz has given herself permission to not fill up her calendar is a big personal win for you. So well done, friend. So happy for you.
Thank you. Well, and kind of adjacent to that, when I was like looking at your website and just kind of prepping for us to talk today, there was something very specific that stood out on your homepage for me. And it ties back into what you were saying about social media. It ties into what we're saying about the calendar. And so I'm going to read it. It says that your mission is to connect, create, coach, and compel, alliteration again, sir, people to act, to launch, and to pursue a new brand of more.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to stop there for a second, because usually when you hear more, it's like more stuff, more money, more. But that's not what you're saying. You want more connectivity, understanding, joy, fulfillment, clarity of purpose and principle. And I love that so much.
I'm so happy to hear that resonated. Yeah. That's the new brand of more for me anyway. And again, I'll go back to what I shared earlier. It took me until I was in my mid to late 40s, early 50s to figure that out. And early in my professional career, one of the reasons I got out of teaching is because I wanted more, but it was a different more. And I got more, that other more, and it was not fulfilling. It was actually wildly stressful, anxiety producing. And I couldn't wait to get off work in the evening. And I'll tell you a quick story. I think back to Halloween night, 2014, and my Cat in the Hat outfit is laid out, ready for me to climb into it. And it was fantastic. It was a fantastic costume. I'm not going to lie. It was pretty fantastic.
No doubt.
Yes. And I'm not a big dress up guy, so this was a big deal that I was even thinking about this.
I was slightly shocked that you even had a costume, but carry on.
I borrowed it. Let's be clear. And thing one and thing two, they're here waiting on me. Okay. Our daughter and one of her best friends at the time were here waiting on me to get home from work. And 5 o'clock rolls around, 6 o'clock rolls around, and it's 8 o'clock. And I'm still at the office chasing a quota because it's the last day of the quarter. And I didn't realize it in the moment, but now as I've done more, I will say soul searching and also legit searching and researching, I was like, okay, so that's what an anxiety attack can feel like. And so I'm sitting at my desk, working for a digital marketing company at the time. Loved what we did, but I hated my role in it. I found myself, I just stuck. And I was literally, I felt like I had an elephant on my chest. And I've got 3 different monitors up, and I couldn't do anything. I literally froze. And fast forward an hour and a half, and I get home, it's like 9:30, and thing one and thing two have already been around the neighborhood, and I missed it. And that was the end. That was the capper of me realizing that, okay, there's more to more than this. And so we started to recalibrate what life looked like and what made us happy, what was fulfilling, and started pursuing those things as opposed to just feeling like the paycheck or the nicer car or the nicer suit. None of that stuff mattered. Right. And so there's a new brand of more, and all the I would say all the products, so to speak, that fall under more, the connectivity, the relationship, the community, clarity, all of those things are the more that I'm trying to seek out myself and that I'm trying to help others find also. And so that's why we do the work that we do. That's why we do the work we do with organizations. That's why we do the work we do with students. That's why we do the work we do with volunteers and with our corporate clients as well. So I think if we can we all do a great job of wearing these masks, right? And especially in the community we live in, we don't wait till Halloween to put the mask on. We're wearing them year round. And so trying to help other people take the mask off and realize, we're all just out here doing the best we can with what we've got. And it's okay not to have it all together. And if you are, if you've got 18 masks on trying to convince other people that you got your shit in one sock, come on now. You're not fooling anybody. We're all just broken people doing broken stuff, doing the best we can. So if we can help people find more, a new brand of more, that's what we're running after. And yes, I love that resonated with you when you scrolled through the site. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, I am here for it. I think it's great. And so you're talking about some of the work that you've been doing with these different organizations and with volunteers. I've seen a lot on your social lately. Like you've been speaking at different fraternity conferences and in engagements. So talk a little bit about that and like how you are able to work with these organizations and help them with what they've got going on.
Best way to answer that question, Liz, is I with the work that you and I met at MJ Insurance Housing Forum 8-9 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
And
probably.
so we've got a really wonderful network of people in the fraternity sorority community. My wife and I have been in the fraternity sorority community as either professionals or volunteers literally for 30 years, which is mind blowing to be able to say, and I'm not happy about it. But anyway, she has been professionally in this industry for her entire professional career. So we've got a great network of people. I've been fortunate to get to meet a lot of people, and so I've got a couple of friends out of the gates that trusted me to be with their people, and word kind of starts to spread that, oh, Scott's. We're not hiring Scott because he's our friend. We're hiring Scott because he's actually pretty good at what he does. So, so my initial speaking and coaching started with just mental health awareness, and you saw. Well, I started speaking on the customer experience, got into some mental health awareness content, which you've seen me share before. And then as the opportunities continued to evolve, I just was able to evolve with them. I'll use AGR for an example. They had me out to do a session originally that I was just going to go out to their convention last year in Sacramento and do a session on mental health awareness. And they're like, well, we also need somebody to do something on belonging. Can you do that? Yeah, I think I can do that. And also, could you do something with our house directors? Yeah, I could do something with your house directors. Oh, well, what about, so it's like I've got enough life experience and enough experience in the fraternity sorority community and enough experience with mental health awareness and enough experience with leadership development that I've got a lot of experiences to pull from now. And so that's the fun part of being a little older when you get into this field is I've got a lot to lean on. And I think one of my superpowers is that I just pay attention. I'm really extraordinary at paying attention. And when I hear little nuggets from the leaders that I've been able to be surrounded by my entire career and in my entire life, basically, I can pull those pieces out and I can find stories that they attach to. And when you can, we were on our podcast earlier this week, we had a conversation with Mike McCree, who is has another absolute industry legend in the fraternity sorority community. And he's just sharing all of his leadership lessons. And the more I listened to him talk, the more I was hearing him say he was just taking little bits and pieces, little interactions he'd had with people who probably thought those interactions were very small nuggets in the moment, but they were life-changing. They were transformational for him. So I think, we all have that opportunity to pull those transformational moments if we just pay attention. And, I tell our audiences all the time, I'm like, look, I've never learned anything while I was talking. And I am a firm believer that none of us know as much as all of us. So I count on when I'm sharing at a session, I'm facilitating, I count on the audience teaching as much as they are learning. And I think that's part of the secret sauce of being a really good facilitator is being fully aware that you don't have all the answers and knowing that you don't have to have all the answers and that there's some really extraordinary expertise in the audience. If you can just ask the right question, shut up long enough to let somebody answer it, and then get them to expand on it. And so that's sort of how this is evolving. But, it was fun to do the event with AGR last year and get to learn from them because that's a group I hadn't worked with before.
Yeah.
It's a profession that I hadn't worked with before. But, whether it's working with our Greek groups or corporate clients, it's just been great learning. And I'm learning that I'm a little bit of a chameleon. So whether you're the custodian or the CEO, I have found a way to connect with folks. And again, I'm learning that we're all not that different. We just have a different title. But most of us are just out here getting it done, doing the best we can with what we have.
I think that's accurate. And you being able to relate to a variety of folks tracks that's on brand.
I'm so lucky to grow up where I grew up. I grew up in a really small town in Tennessee. And
remind me where?
A small town called Portland, which is about 40 minutes north of Nashville. It's right on the Tennessee-Kentucky state line. And I remember going to work with a corporate client. This is probably 2 years ago now. And I hadn't worked with this was my first venture into this particular demographic. As you can imagine, men don't particularly care to talk about mental health very much.
Yeah.
So for those who are listening and not watching this, you just saw Liz totally swallow a Snicker, which was great. I love how you just ate that laugh. That was great. So those people who look like me, we are generally the problem when it comes to mental health awareness because we don't want to talk about it. We grew up in this rub some dirt on it generation. We're just going to push that down. We're just going to keep on pushing that emotion down. We should not be talking about that. But I went into this corporate client and I'm watching the audience kind of stroll into the conference room and I'm like, okay, that's clear. Those appear to be the HR people over there. That looks to be the leadership corner over there. And then I'm watching a group of other guys that walking in that clearly just walked off the job site. They've still got fluorescent vest on. Some of them are taking their hard hats off and setting down. And I was like, okay, we are about to learn if we can connect with a new group here. And what I found was as these guys came in, I started to see all the guys I grew up with and each of them as they walked in. And so was really lucky to have that experience growing up in a small, pretty rural town, pretty blue collar town. And I just saw all my guys I grew up with. And now I've had this incredible experience at Middle Tennessee State. And then I went to work for our fraternity, Beta Theta Pi, right out of college. And I've been engaged with them. So, I mean, the people that I've met through this experience over since 1990 have completely changed my life. And so whether you're the custodian or the chief executive officer, I've met you at some point in my journey.
Yeah.
So that ability it's not an ability, it's a gift. I've just been really lucky to have had those experiences to get to know people and to see who they are and the gifts that they bring to the table. And yeah, that's when we talk about the new Brandon Moore and that connectivity, the connectivity piece, that's it. So I believe if we can give people an opportunity to connect with others, and again, it doesn't matter what your background is, I think we all have way more in common than we realize. And if we can just create opportunities to help people have conversations and realize it, it's amazing the connectivity and the community that we can create that allows us to move forward together as opposed to being, all these people that are moving along solo. Because we've talked about this. In my view, life is a team sport. There's no such thing as a self-made man. I've been told that 100 times by people that I know are wildly successful. They will all tell you that there's no such thing as a self-made man. And so our job, whether we're facilitators or designers or leaders in fraternity and sorority, our job is to connect our people and help people surround themselves with champions that cheer you on and support you and hold you accountable when you need to be held accountable.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that's the beauty of having the fraternity and sorority experience. I know that having that group to belong to and to keep me accountable is why I went that route in college. I went to a super small high school. wanted to go to a very big college. And then I was like, well, but then I'm going to get lost in the shuffle. So I have to find a way to plug in. And then that was my answer to that. And here we are.
Yeah, I've always heard people talk about, because I've talked about, I went to Middle Tennessee State, as I mentioned earlier, 15,000 students when I was in school, and around 25,000 now. So it's completely changed since I was there. And I'm like, gosh, I really missed having at Kentucky, you guys were scratching and clawing to get into every basketball game, right? Well, they were letting us in for free. They were letting us in for free. They were saying, if you've got a student ID, we're going to let you in the door today. Mm-hmm. So I missed having that school spirit that maybe that's oftentimes connected to athletics. I missed having that, but I had my people, and I've found my community there, kind of like what you were just describing. And I've always heard people say, yeah, maybe you feel like you missed out on some of that, but you can always make a big school feel small, but you can never make a small school feel big.
That's accurate.
Okay.
I think that's accurate. So when you were talking about basketball, it reminded me of a very fun story. Am I allowed to tell the story of you and I on the campus of Kentucky and the basketball situation? Okay. All right. This is like one of my favorite memories with Scott. So we were touring the Craft Center at the University of Kentucky. It's the basketball practice facility, men's basketball practice facility. And so we're touring, and we go into the little practice gym. I say little, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Scott
it's Kentucky. It's not a small space.
Right. Compared to Rupp, it's small. So anyway, we're in there. Scott sees the basketball. And you're like, can I shoot it? Can I shoot it? And I'm like, oh, God, I don't know. Because, Coach Calipari was there at the time. His office overlooked the gym. And so the tour guide was like, I mean, you can. But if he looks out, then we gotta scat. So next thing I know, I'm holding the phone and you're shooting and you're shooting and you're shooting and I'm videoing and I'm photographing, and you were like a kid in a candy store, right? Just loving life doing that.
So happy. So happy.
Yep. We got all the footage. Then that night we go out to dinner and Rex Chapman is there.
Oh my gosh.
I thought you were going to stroke out and die. Like I just thought all your basketball dreams had come true that day.
That was a good weekend. That was a good week. Yeah, I remember being out there, and first off, our tour guide was it was a very reluctant, yes, you can get a couple shots up. He was not excited about the fact that I even asked about it.
Nope, but you were not letting it go.
Oh, no. I mean, it was just like he didn't say no. Mm-hmm. So I didn't care how much enthusiasm was behind his yes, just long as he didn't say no.
Right.
And but yeah, just like I was a gym rat growing up, and my dad coached for the first 15 years of, maybe not that long, but he coached for over 40 years. And until I was in like third or fourth grade, he was the girls basketball coach at our local high school, and he coached there for 19 or 20 years. So my earliest childhood memories were in the high school gym, being there for his practices, going to pick up players when we had a snow day in Tennessee, which means we probably had a dusting and they had to shut down the schools. Total panic, 5-alarm Kroger alert, right? Mm-hmm. And so if that's what your growing up experience was like, are you kidding me? I'm in Kentucky's basketball facility. You think I'm not going to get a shot up? Well, if you don't want to put a shot up, the balls should not be accessible. Well, what was fun, I don't know if you remember this part, but I remember I got a couple shots up and one of the players came out. He clearly heard the ball bouncing and he's like, somebody's getting better when I'm sitting here not doing anything. And then he came out and he saw 5'7" Scott Fussell, clearly no longer eligible to play college basketball. And he suddenly thought, I can go back. Nobody's getting better. Nobody's outworking me right now. So
I did not remember that, but that's funny.
For sure. Absolutely. I forgot who it was, but yeah. So he came out and saw me and was immediately not threatened and did an about face, a 180 and went back in the locker room or wherever he was. But but then to meet Rex Chapman that night was nuts. And totally engaging. Could not have been nicer. And you talk about hoop dreams. Come on. Man, that was a good day. That was a much better day than we had at the track that day because that didn't go well.
That is true, and that's probably a story for another time. Your follies at trying to bet at Keeneland.
No, don't pay attention to the betologist.
Yeah,
they're
that
working
was
for
the
the
downfall.
house. They're working for the house.
Okay, so back to kind of on a serious note. You've talked a lot about mental health, and it's been something that's come up in conversations with my clients a lot more over the last few years. And it led me to complete a certification in a course called Science in Design. And so it's really talking about the neuroscience behind the design work and how our environments support our mental state, positive, negative, whatever, and just some of the research behind it. And I've really loved getting to know that because I love the stories behind things and understanding the why behind the what.
Oh, man.
And so I see so much value in the things that you're talking about with mental health and then the ways that now my profession, how I can support that. So talk a little bit about your work in that space and just some of what you're seeing.
First off, thank you for letting curiosity be your superpower and going and getting that certification or taking that class. And we need more people doing that kind of work so we can create spaces that are more conducive to supporting our well-being. Didn't know that was something that could be created until, less than 10 years ago. So I just love that there are people really digging into the science behind it. And the fact that you did that yourself is just really not surprising at all. And my God, our client or your clients are lucky that that's the kind of intelligence and just the brilliance that you bring to the work.
You're very kind. Thank you. What are you seeing, like when you're working with these organizations on mental health? Like, what are the areas that you see that they're really struggling, or what are the places that you're seeing like, oh, they're really doing well over here? And just, I don't know, just what you're seeing as the professional speaking on this, because you're out there talking to these folks.
Yeah, well, I will tell you that I don't know that anybody's just absolutely crushing it. That's why you doing the work that you're doing is so, so important. One of the things I'm really excited about, though, is we've got a lot of groups who are getting there. Getting there. So I just want to throw a few stats at you so your listeners can kind of better understand the kind of the landscape here. But these are the students who are coming to our campuses, right? So we know that 29% of high school students have a diagnosable mental health challenge. We know that 1 in 10 of them struggle with ADHD. 22% of our high school students have seriously considered suicide, right? 22%. Now, a stat that I couldn't believe when I read it, and I had to read it multiple times to convince myself that I was reading it correctly. 11 years is the average amount of time between a young person exhibiting symptoms of a mental health challenge and actually receiving treatment. So think about that. That's the equivalent of a parent letting their kid walk around with a fever for 11 years before giving them an aspirin or a Tylenol. So, so we've got young people who are coming to our chapter houses and our campuses who've been struggling for years and may or may not have just been receiving support. So that's a devastating stat to me. We also know that 1 in 2 Americans struggle with isolation and loneliness. And if you haven't read the outgoing Surgeon General's parting prescription for America, highly recommend it. And because it's going to go through all of the work that he's done on isolation and loneliness. It is a fascinating study, and it's just content I think everybody, especially in this space, needs to consume.
I bet.
Now I will tell you the other thing specifically for your listeners, and the groups that you support, is 77% of college students experience psychological distress during the year. 77%. So more than 3/4 of our young people who are coming to our campuses and our chapter houses are struggling throughout the year. And so when I'm doing this session for folks, I always have that stat is very, very transparent. It's hard to see on the screen. And the reason I do that is because it's hard for us to see that when we've got these men and women walking through our chapter houses, and they've got big smiles on their faces and they're cutting up and they look like they're having the best time ever. And we see their highlight reel on Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok or whatever. And it's hard to see when somebody's really struggling. So that's why the work that you're doing is so important, because we've got to create spaces for that 77% to come and feel like they can exhale, so they can connect with other people, not just gaming, or playing sports, which I think those things are great, but can we create a space that is conducive to people having a really meaningful conversation? Can we create spaces where the colors are kind of bring the temperature down in the room a little bit, or the sounds, or the furnishings, all of those things. And you know this better than I do. All of those things contribute to what a space can be to support the wellness of our members. And so when I think about those stats and the spaces that you're supporting, I just don't know that everybody in our community fully understands what's going on out there. I love that mental health has become a front burner issue, but I still don't know that people understand how high to turn the heat up. So, you know, there are groups out there that are doing some extraordinary work. And, you know, this is one of the things I'm really excited about with Beta is we've sort of been what I would consider late to the game on mental health. And, you know, so last week we had our board meeting in Houston, and we decided that, look, kind of rattled off all these stats and shared some opportunities that are available. And we decided as a group that mental health needs to be something that is added to our strategic plan. So, and we decided that after seeing what so many other groups are doing. And so it's kind of fascinating what groups are doing out there. I would use, you know, our first, and you'll kind of remember this from a couple of years ago when we talked with Casey Keller, who was then the exec at Sigma Kappa's National House Corporation. They were really integrating mental health and wellness into their design. And they were, you know, and it could be something as simple as making sure that the colors on the wall were designed with kind of peace and quiet. And you'll think back to a couple of years ago when we were working with Casey Keller. You know, Sigma Kappa got really intentional with their design in their homes and creating spaces that were more supportive of mental health and wellness. One of the things that they did I thought was fascinating was they were creating pods. Yeah. So it could be either be a 2-person booth or a 4, 6, or 8-person booth, essentially, that was soundproof, where a young person could get on. They could have a telehealth appointment with a therapist, or you and I could have a one-on-one where, man, you saw me walking through the house. You're like, okay, Scott, I haven't seen that look on your face before. Let's go talk about it. And we could have a space to go have that conversation. And so what I love is, you know, you've got groups that are actually, whether it's design in the house or they're creating new programming opportunities through either Behind Happy Faces or Talk Space or Better Mind, et cetera. They're, you know, we're either providing programming or making treatment easier to find for our members. And I think that's essential. And this is one of the other stats that I found recently was since 2000, 2020, the number of students, the percentage of students looking for mental health support has gone up by 60% on our campuses. And 50% of students will say that there's an access issue. Like I can't afford it, or the resources aren't available, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, we've got a drastic increase in the number of students who are seeking support, but we've got a lack of resources that are available locally and on campus. So that's why the work that you're doing is so important in partnership with your clients, because man, if we don't come alongside and support these students, they're not going to get the support otherwise.
Yeah, so, you are so right. I see that the increase of those seeking support, I see that as a positive thing, because it means they're not afraid to ask for help, and a lot of the stigma is going away. But that is concerning that maybe the resources aren't as caught up and available to them. So hopefully that will catch up soon, and folks like yourself and what you're doing. And then, like you said, the design work, all of that could work together to support an individual.
You bring up a great point. It's like, okay, do we have more students who are struggling, or do we have more students who are actually seeking help?
I tend to think it's the latter. I think as a culture, it's not just like you said, men don't want to talk about mental health. They don't want to talk about feelings. I don't know that it's just as a culture, it's not been okay to do that. Yeah. And only in recent years has it been like, it is okay to do these things. And mental health doesn't have to be a dirty word. It can be a positive thing. You're trying to make sure you're always in a healthy manner mentally, just the way that you nourish your body well. So I think we're shifting there, and I see it as a positive. Maybe I'm a dreamer.
No, I think you're dead on. I think you're right on. I think our young people get it way more so than people of my demographic. It's funny. I think back to, this is years ago now. Our daughter and I went out to lunch after church one day, and we wound up sitting with some friends from church, and they wound up talking about, well, my counselor this and my therapist that. And we got back in the car, and I was like, Avery, I'm so proud of how open you talk about your conversations with your therapist. And she's like, oh, Dad, this is nothing for me and for my friends. Everybody I know is either seeing someone or is on a medication. And so it's, and 100% of the people that she knows are, that's not the case. But her point was, so many people are talking about this because everybody's trying to get help, and we don't have a problem talking about it. So it would be really great if people who look like you were okay talking about it too. Over the last few years, that's why I'm more open about my challenges with anxiety, and, had a pretty good run with depression late last year. And so if we don't talk about it, then we are adding to the stigma.
You're right.
We are really leaning into it. So we got to be able to talk about it. Like, we should be able to talk about our mental health challenges just like we do our physical health challenges. Like, if I've got depression, I should be able to talk to you about that just as easily as I talk about tearing my Achilles playing pickleball, So, which did not happen, but not saying it won't, but if it does, I'm just saying we should be able to talk about those things just as easy.
We should. You're right. And if my dog wasn't sleeping in the room with me, I would knock on wood for you that you would not tear your Achilles playing pickleball.
Thank you. I'm so grateful. So grateful.
I'm a good friend. You're welcome. That's okay. Scott, it's been a pleasure to have you and to get to chat today. Can you let folks know the best ways they can connect with you online and otherwise?
Liz, I so appreciate you asking. And I'm going to do the best I can to get this right. And I'm counting on, if I screw this up too badly, that your listeners will go into the show notes and find all this information. So you can reach out on social. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. But if you want to learn more about how I can come alongside your organization from a teaching and coaching and speaking perspective, you can go to scottfussellcoaching.com. You can also check out our podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcast, and would love for you to come alongside and give that a listen. And just so appreciate you having me with you today, Liz. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, yes, it was great, as always. And you are 100% correct. All of your socials and website and all your contact information will be linked in today's show notes. So thank you so much, Scott, for coming on to Sorority Chat.
Absolutely. Thank you, Liz. Appreciate all you're doing.
Welcome to Liz's House Hot Takes. This is where I take the lessons I've learned over the last 16 years of designing Greek houses and offer you my pro tips. Don't forget about your outdoor spaces. If your chapter has a porch, a patio, or a courtyard, invest in cute and weatherproof furniture. Add string lights, comfy seating, and you'll turn any outdoor area into a sisterhood hotspot. Trust me, this will become your favorite place to study on those warm spring days. Thanks for listening to another House Hot Take. For more inspiration, check out the PDR Interiors Instagram or TikTok. I'm Liz Toombs, and this is the Sorority Chat podcast. Catch you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're listening on a podcast platform, make sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. And if you got something out of today's conversation, we'd love for you to leave us a 5-star review. It helps us reach more listeners just like you. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to check out this video right here or this one over here. And don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us out. On that note, I'm Liz Toombs with Sorority Chat, and I'll see you on the next one. This podcast is produced by Collier Landry for Don't Touch My Radio. Copyright Liz Toombs.